It might even be that every case of COVID-19 in Victoria in recent weeks could be sourced to the hotel quarantine program. So what do we get? A cost to the national economy of at least $12 billion, 400,000 jobs gone, businesses who'll never again be able to return to business, and curfews, as I mentioned, the outstanding editorial in The Spectator, which made the point that bears repeating, curfews are tools of political repression, of martial law, of military occupation. They're not part of living in a thriving parliamentary democracy. Well, let's hear from the wonderful mind of Adam Creighton. Adam, if you have 1 in 3 Australian adults or 6.3 million people, and that was just by May 1 in 3 getting a special government handout, and half of all adult Tasmanians, for example, where the hell does this end?
Well, look, it's pretty grim statistics, Alan, and I think it's worth pointing out that it's actually worse than that. If you throw in the public servants across all 3 tiers of government, more than 52% of the entire workforce are actually, in some sense, dependent on a government handout now, whether it's a salary or a social security benefit. That's just extraordinary. I mean, more than half the workforce. In terms of where it ends, look, it's going to get worse. I think we're in kind of a phony recession now, if you like. You know, they talked about the phony war at the start of the Second World War where not much was happening. It's much the same now because of all this huge influx of debt from the federal government. Well, the huge influx of income. It was $30 billion in July, $23 billion this month. But that's going to fall away. It's going to fall to 14 in November and then 7 in January and then basically nothing in March and April. And when that happens, when the tide comes out, you're going to see so many millions more people unemployed, officially unemployed, when JobKeeper ends. And I think that's when the real recession is going to start. And I think it's when people are going to ask serious questions about whether the right strategy has been pursued by our state governments, especially in Victoria.
Adam, Matthias Cormann says the government is not an ATM. How many people are fooled by that? What?
Well, certainly it's acting like an ATM at the moment, and in its defence, that's what governments are doing all around the world. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing to do in the long run, but look, interest rates are low, so it can service the debt, but look, it just can't keep doing this forever, and to the government's credit, it has said this. These programs have to end. I mean, JobKeeper has to end. We can't keep borrowing from foreigners, which is effectively what's happening, to pay people to do little or nothing indefinitely. That's just not going to work. And all these people going around saying we can print money is just complete madness.
Well, I mean, you know, all our freedoms are being taken away. We're under martial law in Victoria. You've written today about political philosophy. Where do Liberal governments fit in to the total withdrawal of personal freedoms, curfews, border closures, telling people how to live, who you can meet, where you can meet, where you can eat, where you can shop, which businesses can operate, under which conditions? Who is defending the philosophy of personal freedoms?
Well, look, very few people right now, and I just don't know how with a straight face Liberal Party politicians after this can say that they respect, you know, the sanctity of the individual and you know, rule of law and so forth, and you know, a low deficit, low debt. I mean, we've just had the biggest increase in debt and deficit in peacetime by a Liberal government. We've had extraordinary draconian incursions on our civil liberties, without, I might add, any scientific justification, really, or indeed any cost-benefit analysis whatsoever. Nothing's been presented to the people, and yet it's just happened. In Victoria, of course, they've declared a state of disaster, which effectively suspends all laws and gives all the powers to the Premier and the Police Minister for a disease which has a 99.5% survival rate. I mean, it really is hard to even say that it's happening, but it's happened.
I mean, you and I said from the outset, and I was saying before I came here onto this program, it's pretty simple. You had to protect the vulnerable. Indeed, the Prime Minister himself said this on March 15, protect the vulnerable, quarantine the sick, but don't lock down everything else. Lock down the aged care homes, of course. Let the rest of the people get on with their lives. But we've now got a private sector recession and a Liberal government providing over economic collapse.
No, extraordinary. And look, I firmly believe in 12 months' time these lockdowns will be seen as very bad policy. We've just seen this evening an outbreak in New Zealand. Extraordinary. This has been held out as the paragon of the correct response, and yet we've got more cases of transmission, and I understand the Prime Minister there has just ordered another lockdown, which is just extraordinary punishment on the people of New Zealand, and you know, clearly demonstrates the arrogance of this view that, you know, governments by fiat, you know, like King Canute can just order viruses to go away. Is just extraordinary. We have to live with this, and we have to be practical.
Adam, George Orwell once said, no one ever seizes power with the intention of relinquishing it. No politician today seems of the mind to let individuals determine their own destiny.
No, look, it's certainly, sadly, the case that a lot of this extra surveillance that we've had to put up with from this virus is going to be around for a very long time. I mean, look back at the First World War. You know, before then, people could move among countries kind of with relative freedom, and then passports came in because governments wanted more control. And look, over 100 years later, you know, we have a lot more than passports now. It's bigger and bigger government all the time, and I do worry about that because, as you say, bureaucracy does not like giving up power. There's extraordinary path dependence here, and we've basically all just copied what China's done.
Absolutely.
That's essentially what's happened.
Brilliant, brilliant stuff. Adam, let me just bring in here Adrian Lyons, who is a guest of mine here now. I spoke to him last night about this inland rail. The route is wrong, and if it proceeds as it is, 117 farms from Narromine to Narrabri will be carved up, and no one seems to care in Canberra. One-sided consultation, no business case, no talk of proper compensation. But if they used the old line and modernised it, it would go to Coonamble, problem solved. Now, I'm going to come back to that in a later program, but Adam, I'm swamped with correspondence on this border closure stuff. A farmer rang me today. He's got a farm in Murgon and a farm at Bingara. Murgon is 270 kilometres northwest of Brisbane. Bingara is in the New England region on the Guida River. But with the new border restrictions, he can't go from one farm to another. And he says, well, the drenching, feeding and general care of the animals is at risk. Springtime's near. Flies and worms get active. Sheep need essential care. And if they don't get it, they die. A painful death caused by being fly-blown and worm-burdened. And farmers need to be able to get to their farms. So declaring all of New South Wales a hotspot indicates that those running government know nothing about farming or business. Now, Adrian Lyons last night, after joining me on the program, highlighted a similar problem. There are contract harvesters, and they start in Queensland. They pay $700,000–800,000 for a harvester. They start in Queensland and they follow south with their headers. And Adrian's with me. Adrian, just take this up again. Just explain to me the problems that exist.
Well, the problems we have is we're short-staffed as it is. We've got to man our properties. We've got to man these grain corp sites and all sites that receive grain. But we have this flow of traffic that's been going on for 50 years, where they start up in Queensland and the Victorian headers come up to Queensland. They work all through Queensland, down through New South Wales. They bring all their staff. And here we have these restrictions on the borders between New South Wales and Victoria. How do you get across these borders? How do we deliver grain from, say, North Star to Gumdawindi? They've got to have...
These people are harvesting food for a table.
Yeah, paddock to plate.
I mean, shouldn't this be an essential service?
This is exactly what we've got to talk about. We've got time to work this out. We really have to work out how we cross these borders, how we get these staff, how do we work with the government to be able to have proper measures in place, and we are short-staffed everywhere.
But see, these poor coots have had rain. They've been begging for rain. They've had rain. So the wheat harvest, the chickpeas, the grain could be the biggest since 2016, and you can't get seasonal workers.
No, not at all.
And that's due to COVID. Of course, the backpackers, they're not allowed in and so on. And the farmers pleading for workers. And this is lovely. What the government sends you workers, yes, we can give you workers, hairdressers and baristas.
Well, it's such a great idea, but I don't think I want an $850,000 header, no disrespect, ridden by a coffee maker or... they can make us coffee in the paddock, that'd be great.
Yes.
But we can't have someone applying their skills on this header.
Adam, let's bring Adam Creighton and he's magnificent. Adam, how could this be? I've mentioned in the recent Lancet Medical Journal, it argued, and I quote, in our analysis, full lockdowns and widespread COVID-19 testing were not associated with reductions in the number of critical cases or overall mortality. I mean, Adam...
Isn't that just extraordinary? Because frankly, even if they were associated, then it still wouldn't be an ironclad case because of all the extraordinary costs of the lockdown. So even putting the cost to one side, they still can't find a relationship after 6 months. I mean, really, this just surely highlights the folly of this move. And as I said earlier, in 12 months' time, you know, when there's royal commissions into this, when there's inquiries all around the world, the conclusion will certainly be you do not put your entire population under house arrest for months.
But, Adrian, you've got this bloke, McCormack, leader of the National Party. No one even knows him. He knows nothing. He won't meet you because he's got no answers. He hasn't got the bureaucrats with him. I mean, the bloke is absolutely hopeless, and this is his constituency.
Well, the thing is, you said it there earlier, they talk in platitudes. They're not serious about what we offer as a New South Wales Farmers and Country Women's Association. We bring things to the table. We've got a lot of experience with our policy advisors and farmers who live and breathe this. We want to be able to support this. We offer information. We've got to get listened to. That's all there is to it.
Good on you. Well, hang in there. I'll be speaking to someone off air. Adam, just a final word to you. I mean, where is this going to end up, Adam Creighton?
Where's it going to end up? Well, that's the question. Look, I think it's going to see governments eventually back away from their lockdowns, because as we're seeing around the world, these breakouts still happen after the lockdowns. We're seeing it in France, we're seeing it in Spain. So they're going to have to tell their people, look, we were wrong.
We were wrong.
And we're going to have to live with this.
Absolutely. Great stuff, Adam. Good to talk to you. Talk to you next week, Adam Creighton. Adrian, thank you for your time.